would be right there. Back further, I think.
Something sitting there sometime in the summer before we redo the project.
They put the blessing box up there yet?
Do what?
Did they put the box up there yet? The blessing box?
I guess it is the witching hour. We can start the meeting, I suppose. Call to order the Electric Plant Board meeting, December meeting, December 22nd, 2020.
For some reason, my foot.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there any adds, subtracts, or errors that anyone wants to go over?
I've got a question, DT. Is this a special called meeting or is this a regular called meeting? I know there were two, on the calendar. So, and then you requested one and then we had the order.
It is the regular meeting.
Okay.
At 6. The special call meetings are emergency meetings in case that someone can't get back on. They're only for backup. We have to conduct business, and if the regular scheduled meeting somehow fails, we have an emergency. We've got business to conduct that has to be done, and it would be in late January before we could take it up again. So it becomes an emergency if we can't act on some of these things. In particular, things like we have court orders that we have to answer. So hopefully we won't have that problem and we'll be able to proceed on and we won't get into that issue.
Okay.
I make a motion, we approve agenda.
Have a motion, a second.
I get a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next item of the agenda is to consider the minutes of the November 2020 regular meeting. Does anybody have anything to add or subtract to that? If not, do I hear a motion of approval as is?
Motion.
Second.
Have a second?
Got a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the COVID response results. I presume Billy Ray has something to address on that.
I do. The only thing that's changed since the last time we did this report, which is, I guess now 10 months old doing this report, we have resumed disconnects as we had done last month, but now we have we made it through 9 months without having a positive COVID-19 test on a member of the team. Now we have 2. We have 2 more that have members of their immediate household that are positive. So now we've got 4 out in quarantine. So we made it this long without that, but now we're hoping that other elements of our plan, where the lobby is closed and we're trying to limit our visits inside homes, and that we split the group into 2 families, so the contact between the 2 is minimal. We hope that is going to work because we are now going through this process of reduced members of the team due to the virus. That's all I have to report on that.
All right. Anyone have any contributions to that? If not, next issue is the bad debt write-offs. I presume you have that, Billy, right?
I do, although I usually use part of the COVID report, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, is this slide we've been using about how the dollar value of the vouchers that are coming in from the Community Relief Fund. As you can see on the far right over here, November was shockingly high, and December looks like it's going to be at the same level, way over $10,000 in vouchers granted by community relief. So now we're seeing where our funding of that agency is really coming in useful as the demand is growing, obviously because we resumed disconnects. The write-offs, I have a link to them if y'all want to be able to scroll through them. This is what we do every 6 months. Don't tell me it's not coming open. There it is. There's a lot of lag in this machine.
I think it minimized.
I've done something and crashed the file, but you all had it in your narrative. It represents about $80,000 to $90,000 worth of write-offs, 45 of which is due to the LSC bankruptcy. The rest of them are due to just generic customers who didn't pay their bill, and we cannot blame all of this on the on the pandemic, because this is only accounts to be written off that are 6 months old, so it goes through June. So we didn't capture much of the pandemic with this. So I guess I'm telling you that as a warm-up, that in July it'll probably be a lot worse. Although hopefully we won't have another major industrial bankruptcy like we did with LSC.
Is there, if these go in collections later, or is there any point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, all you're doing now is really an accounting entry so that the minutes will reflect that they move from current to written off, but we never stop pursuing them. They'll go into record, and any identifying data like social security numbers, if 5 years from now somebody on this list comes in to establish service, we're going to track it back to this amount that was written off and try to get that paid up.
Okay.
What was the amount that was written off 6 months ago, Billy?
Libby, I believe it's around $48,000.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking. And so basically, as far as residential, because I think there was like just a smaller amount on that one that was commercial. So basically on residential, it actually went down a tad.
Yeah, but remember, it didn't have a whole lot of the pandemic included.
Right.
But yeah, I would agree. Were it not for LSC Communications, this would have been a lower than usual 6 month write-off volume.
Well, that's a good trend. I won't hold my breath on it staying, but it's a good trend.
I wouldn't suggest it. But yeah. So a motion will be in order just to perform this accounting entry to move it across to the other side of the ledger.
Motion.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? Is there opposed? Do we have an opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consider response from TVA regarding the flexibility option. I have emailed an motion to the board regarding this. I will read it. If we have any discussion, we can do that. A motion is made to authorize the firm of Frost, Brown and Todd of Lexington, Kentucky to engage the TVA in restoring to the GEPB the 90-day consideration period for the flexibility option to the 20-year contract. This will be what they'll try to do. Those issues are law, and very few of us know a lot about the details of electricity and power utility law. So, but they are experts and will know how to handle this if there is any options. Any discussion? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, I sent out, this is Ron, I sent out that letter, that I got back when I got it. So I didn't hear any questions from anybody. I just want to be sure nobody had any questions for me about that letter.
I saw it, I read it, I understand it. At this point, they're not going to do anything.
Well,
So-
I mean, the flexibility agreement, I mean, that allows us to generate 3 to 5% of our own power, which, as we've discussed before, can be thrown back into the grid to help offset peak and occurrence, the way I understand it. So why would we not stay in that? I mean, I have been literally begging y'all for months to move on the solar pilot project, which the money is setting aside. And I mean, it was set aside for that specifically. I mean, that flexibility agreement it's crazy not to pursue that generation.
The flexibility option, the rejection of the flexibility option allows us to consider rejecting the 20-year contract.
Well, and once again, I mean, what's wrong with a 20-year contract, DT? I mean, it's standard in the energy field. It also, I mean, just by everything that TVA has done to help get CATL to come here, all the incentives they were given by TVA. I mean, so, obviously TVA is an excellent partner to have. In the energy industry, a 20-year contract is standard. We get 3.1% rebate back each month, which is helping a whole lot of people in our community, especially this year. We can actually generate 3 to 5% of our own power that can be thrown back into grid to help offset some of those charges that you have been complaining about for months and, well, years, let's be real. So, I mean, what is so bad about the 20-year contract or the flexibility agreement itself? I mean, it's kind of a win-win every way you go.
The flexibility agreement locks us into a 20-year contract. Nobody knows what the cost of power from TVA or any other supplier is going to be in 20 years. There is no way of predicting. Not having an option to get out if things drastically change is a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, I guess the other 50, 60 roughly utility companies with TVA that have signed the 20-year contract, I mean, I guess we're the only ones that are genius or what? I'm really confused on what is so bad about being able to generate some of your own power. Or that 20-year contract, which, like I said, is standard in the energy business.
Most of the utilities in this TVA community of utilities have no option when it comes to alternate power, alternate sources of power. Glasgow happens to be on the periphery of TVA's area, and if the price of power went up drastically, Glasgow would have options. And there is every reason to believe that we could take those if the power prices went out of sight. You have no idea what they will be.
You have no idea what they do with another
what-
company either. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's not even the issue. The issue is these other utility companies had the option to sign a 20-year contract or not a 20-year or stay in whatever contract that they currently had. If they chose that 20-year contract, all 150, 60, somebody can tell me the exact number. But so I guess we're out of all those, we're the only ones that are just genius enough to want to be out of it. I mean, take into consideration, like I said, everybody needs to take into consideration everything that TVA is doing for this community right now as far as economic development goes too. Because I would really hate to see a great company that's coming here have any kind of negativity over somebody wanting to leave a TVA.
We are not asking to leave the TVA. We have a 5-year contract that no one has discussed leaving. We're still in here. Our problem is locking the door for 20 years and having to buy power at whatever rate TVA decides is beneficial. That's just the worst possible business decision. 5 years is a long time to get out of a contract. 20 years, it's impossible. We actually never can get out of the contract.
So you just kind of agreed TVA is a great partner to have in a roundabout way. So if we know that, then what is wrong with everything we get with that 20-year contract? 3.1% rebate?
We don't know what's going to happen 5 and 10 years down the road. If you think this is the way it's going to be forever, then, you know, I suppose that's all right, but it's not. It never is. Business changes. The rules change. And if we're sitting here having to pay whatever, the politics change. We'll have 3 or 4 administrations, political, presidential, before 20 years are up. And the person who discovers the problem is not going to be able to do anything about it for 20 years. That's just crazy business.
And you've got every one of those things you mentioned with any power provider you have. So,
No, you don't.
Anyway, I'm not going to sit and argue with you, DT. It's Christmas time. I'm in a good mood. You're not even going to ruin that for me. But the simple fact is, everything that I just said are all the benefits that come with that. If we know TVA is a great partner, why would we not take advantage of those benefits? Tag, I see you wanting to say something. I'll quit hogging the floor.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just patiently waiting my turn. You know, the thing, Chairman Froge is being a little bit disingenuous here. This is a 20-year contract, yes. I've been in the energy markets now for about 7 years. I've seen all kinds of contracts and literally dozens of contracts, executed dozens of contracts for the purchase of power directly from the distributor. And I can tell you that there is not a single one that I've signed that is under 20 years. So that is the standard for the industry. Number two, and I know it sounds crazy, I do, but at this point, you know, we have to let I guess maybe a little bit of that common sense go as what we think may be the norm, and gain an understanding from somebody that's been in this field for several years. And I'll just tell you that 20 years is the standard. I've seen them as high as 30 years with 10-year extensions on them, depending on the cost of the production facility. So a little bit disingenuous. Number two, the contract originally allowed for cost controls. So we do have an exit ramp if the price of distributing and providing that energy to us gets over certain amounts within that, and I think they're in 5-year increments. So there are cost controls within that contract. So the hair on fire approach here of saying that they could charge us whatever they want to charge us is also being disingenuous, because terms of the contract don't allow for that. Thirdly, as you stated a second ago, Libby, the partnership with having TVA as our provider, you know, it's worked for 87 years. 1933 was when this thing was put in place. Been around for 87 years. TVA had 3 mandates. The first mandate was to supply clean drinking water to parts of Appalachia. Then once they got clean water, they realized, you know what, people are still poor as dirt because of the coal and the timber barons. So the TVA at the time said, you know, second mandate was to provide for economic development opportunity. Since it is controlled by Congress and it is a wholly owned subsidiary of the United States government, then one of the benefits to having TVA is the fact that we now are able to qualify for federal funding in the form of economic development funding. The third or tertiary mandate from TVA is power production. And the only reason that came along is because they realized they had a lot of power stored in those clean water reservoirs. But let's go back to the second mandate, and that's the economic development part of this thing. You know, Glasgow is a direct beneficiary of that economic development aspect of TVA's TVA partnership within Glasgow. You know, we just had the cat's out of the bag, so we can talk about it at this point. But CATL is now going to be located within the city limits of Glasgow at the old LSC building. That's a little over $100 million investment within our community. It's the largest opportunity we've had in this community in over 40 years. And it's the largest manufacturing investment in the state of Kentucky this year. So Glasgow is a direct recipient because not only is TVA buying or giving through incentive plans, along with the Kentucky Economic Development Authority, the TVA is providing up to $3 million worth of incentives out of a $100 million budget. That's very substantial. And this company has said they would not locate anywhere that was outside of the TVA territory, because there's other things which I'm not privy to talk about, but there are other things that are going on right now with CATL that is going to allow them to not only they make batteries. So the consumption of energy that they use just in their raw material and their manufacturing process in order to get their product to finished goods, the energy requirement is substantial, and I'm very substantial. There's opportunities now for them to be able to generate some of this power they're going to use within their manufacturing process through renewable energy resources that only TVA was able to provide to them. They'll tell you that if asked. And the third thing is this CATL is going to be only assembling the products on the front end. They're not going to be manufacturing any of the component parts that are used in their manufacturing process. So in order to procure those raw materials, or I'm sorry, the materials that they put into their assembly plant, someone else is going to make those materials. There are 2 other manufacturing facilities that are going to locate here. They're going to provide the raw materials for assembly to CATL that potentially offer up to 700 new jobs in addition to CATL. That new industrial park where those 2 factories are going to be located is out 6880, out past the stockyards out there on the left. Jim Gray announced just last month, who's our transportation secretary, that he's going to add a 4-lane road and a turning lane from the Wright Implement location all the way out to the new industrial park. The state of Kentucky is paying for that because TVA has stepped up and said they're going to purchase the industrial park for us. And if I believe I'm correct, I believe it's $160,000 to $180,000 a year over the next 3 years they're going to utilize to pay for that new industrial park. So the benefits that we get out of TVA, and Chairman Froge, you're right, we cannot see the future, and I understand your concern. I'm just saying that it's not aimed at the right place. There are cost controls in place for TVA. The benefits that TVA gives us as being a partner with them through Electric Plant Board far outweigh whatever benefits we may have, and I don't think there are any, but any benefits we may have by switching to someone else, or even at this point, even investigating whether or not someone else, the delta between what we're paying now and potentially could be paying to someone else is nowhere near, in my opinion, outweigh the benefit from what we get from TVA. So, we've almost let this happen once. Thank goodness that we talked about it. We signed this agreement. We got it out the door, because potentially this board, and I can't stress this enough, this board could have single-handedly filed the largest deal we've had in Barron County since the 70s. Okay? This board could have done that. So that agreement was signed. The flexibility agreement was executed. You're right, Mr. Froge. We can waste money all day long trying to figure out if TVA is going to allow us out of this, but you're going to be fighting those big Washington, D.C. attorneys at this point, because TVA has already said we're not getting out of it. So we might as well realize the benefit that we have, stop beating our head against the wall on something that's just not going to happen, and let's thank our lucky stars that we had TVA as our partner, because of look what it's produced. Look what it's produced for us just within the last week. And more good things are going to come. We have to have these strategic partnerships in place for places like Glasgow, Kentucky to be anywhere near competitive in the industrial marketplace, because it's highly competitive across the southeastern U.S. So thank goodness we have it, because I'm telling you, these guys wouldn't have come if we didn't have TVA. Heard that straight from the horse's mouth. So anyway, there's my rant. We can go ahead and discuss whatever we want to discuss at this point. I think it's a waste of money and time and effort. We have other things we need to be worried about. Let's move forward and work in a cohesive manner to really push this community forward in a way. Quit all the bickering, and let's just move on and deal with what we've got to deal with and make this place more prosperous for all of our citizens.
Amen.
I'm personally not willing to pass this problem to somebody else down the line.
Well, you see it as a problem. I see it as a
Don't deal with it. Look, we have the right. We have 5 years on this contract, and it doesn't even start being terminated until we give the signal, and nobody's giving the signal. It is not as though we're abandoning TVA or any of the things that you're talking about. We're talking about the future and what we're trying to avoid in the event that things change.
It's a means to an end.
You don't even know who's going to be running TVA in 10 years. You don't know how they're going to run it. You don't know what they're going to do. If you
I
don't have,
didn't know 87 years ago either, but I can tell you right now, it's being run well now for 87 years. I have all the faith in the world. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's still going to be running fine.
And we know what the controls are in the contract. All you have to do.
Exactly. They're there.
So you're saying this, if we didn't have this 20-year contract, none of this would have materialized?
That's exactly what I'm telling you, Marlon. And we were told as much by Ron Bunch. We were told as much by Ron Bunch in closed session one night. Told as much. He said, if you even talk about leaving TVA, and you were there, Marlon, he said, if you even talk about leaving TVA, you will foul this deal.
we've talked about it continuously for the last 2 years. I don't know how it fouled the deal.
Oh, well, you didn't do it. You know why? Because you had somebody like me and Lee.
You said just talking about it.
You had people like me and Lee. You had
So
me and
long as
Lee.
we're not going to do something, and nobody in the future is going to do anything stupid. And there is no reason we couldn't, 10 years down, if this is a good deal, we could still join that stupid 20-year contract. They'll take it.
No,
But-
what it is, DT, the controls are in the contract. That is all, I mean, they're in there. In
That
their
doesn't
20
matter.
in that 20-year contract, the controls are there.
That narrative doesn't fit the agenda, Libby, so that's being ignored.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, let's,
I think Billy's got something he
I
wanted to
think
say
Billy's
there.
got a question.
Billy Ray?
Mr. Chairman, may I be heard on this matter? I have some information that's less grandiose, and you don't even have to think about 20 years, and you don't need a crystal ball. I've been involved personally with the negotiations with the CATL team. Two of the things that I have already sold them on is the fact that, number one, they need to be able to certify to the people that buy their product that their product was made completely with renewable energy. To do that, somebody like TVA, and I assume there are some other large enough utilities, is able to offer assurances that they will build a project, whether it's wind, solar, biomass, whatever, that will deliver certifiable renewable energy. And to get those deals, because if they build a new solar project, they're going to finance it over 20 years. So the contract period to offer what they ask for, and this offer has already been made to them because the negotiations were ongoing and didn't wait on this matter to be hashed out again by this board. They've already been offered a 20-year product at the price TVA is contracted to build the facilities to deliver. That's number one. Number two, they've been offered, because this outfit happens to be in the battery business, they've been offered to, for us to work together with them on a perfected rate or a customized rate that will use the flexibility agreement to for us to purchase power as they test those batteries and discharge them into the grid. I did those negotiations because these matters were in place. They're done. And now, whether you have an imagination of what's going to happen in 20 years or not, you're talking about upsetting foundation piers under which this announcement has been, or this decision has been made. So I want to be very clear that I don't know, since they've already bought the property, whether we could mess up the deal, but this is going to be considered disingenuous and untrustworthy of the city of Glasgow, and in particular, the Glasgow Electric Plant Board, to be making this kind of a move when they have already been assured that these pieces are in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I was going to say, I'm concerned that I want to know why this flexibility agreement was signed and sent off without the board having a chance to review it, the entire board. I'm concerned over that. And we could have discussed some of this stuff.
I can answer that for you, Glenn. Be happy
Okay,
to.
all right.
I signed the agreement as chairman. We had been presented during the 20-year contract negotiations. We had been presented with the preliminary terms of the flexibility agreement. They hadn't been reduced to writing yet and not put into an executable document. But we had been given preliminary terms to that agreement. We had signed the 20-year agreement overwhelmingly with board approval. The flexibility agreement was germane to the original agreement. It didn't need board approval. It was germane to the original agreement, and the terms presented within it were better than the terms that we had gotten preliminary. If there would have been anything substantially different, of course, but there wasn't. We had all agreed to sign the agreement a long time before that flexibility agreement came, or the contract, long before the flexibility agreement came out. Germane to the original contract, not outside the bounds of what was, matter of fact, it was better than the original terms that were presented. That's why it was signed and executed. But listen, we don't need to litigate whether or not who signed the agreement or what. You don't like it, litigate it. Okay? Litigate the flexibility agreement. But what I'm trying to tell you is this. If you do, be prepared for the backlash. If you want to be the person in town, any of you want to be the person in town because you have some other agenda or some unfounded fear about what's going on with the 20-year contract and cost, etc., which we've already shown, all you got to do is read the contract, and you'll see that there are cost curtailments put in place. All you got to do is read it. It says it, plain as day. But if you want to be that guy or that woman, sorry, Libby, that person that says, you know what, I want to throw a monkey wrench in this whole deal, and the biggest opportunity we've had in this community since the 70s. And Billy Ray has already told you what's going on, okay? And he said what I wasn't willing to say a minute ago. I didn't know, I wasn't comfortable saying it, but I'm glad Billy has talked about it now, that 20-year agreement on that solar project is the linchpin to making this whole thing happen. CATL can go back to their German counterparts or customers that they make these batteries for, BMW, Volvo, Mercedes, whoever it may be, and who have very strict guidelines on how much of the manufacturing sector there, how much of their energy usage has to be produced by renewable energy. They've signed an agreement with them that says they'll inherit and use the same protocols that they use over there. And they're going to be able to do that now because of TVA. So the long-term fears that you're trying to alleviate here by no means outweigh the short-term benefits that we have by being partners with TVA. But if we want to go ahead and do this and go ahead and push this issue and look like we've just lied to the biggest group that we've had in this community for a $100 million project, then by all means, go ahead and hire some attorneys to fight the thing that's best for us. If not, then let's move on and work together. I'm tired of fighting anyway. I'll be off here in January. I'll just focus on to something else. But you know, let's don't look a gift horse in the mouth here, guys. Okay, all because we've got some other agenda. All right, let's do what's best for this community. Move on.
Call the question.
I'll call the question.
All in favor of calling the question? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Time to vote. Make a roll call vote. DT votes aye. Glenn Pritchard.
Aye.
Marlon Witcher.
Aye.
Libby Short.
No.
Tag Taylor.
No.
Motion
All
carried.
you're doing right now is heaping more on all of our customers' bills for next year, wasting money for this attorney. When the stakes have just been explained. But you
Listen, let them litigate it, Libby. We've every time there's been a question and we've told them not to do something, they've done it anyway, just like this rate design, it's blown up in their face. So let's just let them do it again. And that way we can point the finger. We'll know whose fault it is when this stuff starts happening. So, and you can rest assured, I'm going to have one long finger.
Call to order. The next item on the agenda is to consider the action in response to the court order. And I'm proposing a motion is made to authorize our attorney, Mr. Matt Baker, to assist in arranging the court-ordered mediation and take all appropriate measures in defending the board in regard to the litigation. Do I have a second?
Second.
So, wait a minute. Say that again.
Say what again?
You
The
put
motion.
that's a long motion there. I didn't quite get all.
I sent an email copy to you. I'll read it again. A motion is made to authorize our attorney, Matt Baker, to assist in arranging the court-ordered mediation and to take all appropriate measurements in defending the board in regard to the litigation.
What litigation?
Exactly.
Well, we have an action by the superintendent against the board in circuit court.
Ronnie, can you tell me what that action is?
I'm trying to get my mute off here. Well, we still got to have the mediation, so we're still in litigation, but
Right.
we're ordered back to mediation. So I'm just trying to figure out. I must be looking at the wrong agenda. DT, is that number?
That's number 5A. It was added on Friday in the email.
Okay.
It was 5A to consider the action in response to the court order.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've got the stay, I guess, continued stay in place regarding any action as far as certainly the superintendent. So that's still going. I'm not sure what Mr. Baker's plan would be as in response to the current orders as far as the board is concerned. But I mean, litigation is still going on. I would say that it's not over.
Okay.
But isn't litigation kind of contingent upon getting through the mediation or what happens?
So, well, and so one thing, let's make sure that we delineate here. We're going to hire an outside attorney, or we've hired an outside attorney, Mr. Baker. You know, every hour that he works on this, he charges. And I know in the latest court order, DT, that Judge Alexander had indicated that you were responsible for the cost of that. So if we want to go ahead and move Mr. Baker into this management and oversight of the mediation, that'd be fine with me. I just want to remind everyone that once that clock starts, that's going to be on Chairman Froge to bear the cost. And so we need to make sure that we keep that, we understand that. So it's fine with me. If you want to bring in Matt Baker, I figure Ronnie could probably handle it as well as anybody, but if you want to bring in Matt Baker, it's fine with me.
We've already hired him.
Rick
I know,
Walker will still
I know.
be.
It's
We're
the difference
supposed to,
between hiring him and
Bill is
Bill,
saying
getting
litigation.
Bill.
Okay.
and we'll be using the same mediator, correct?
I think that's right, Libby. What I would expect is that Mr. Baker, as Mr. Baker and Mr. Davenport would try to, as they did the last time. I wasn't Mr. Baker though. Would try to get that scheduled ASAP. I would think.
Well, don't forget about Rick Hughes is in there too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Call a question. Everybody's had enough to say on it. A roll call vote. All right. I vote yes. Glenn?
Yes on that, aye.
Marlon?
Yes.
Libby? Jag?
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and Board, each December, at least for the last 37 years, we have used a tried and true approach to deciding how to fund any merit, apprentice, merit and apprentice and other hourly wage changes. And we do that by doing a survey of our peers that have been chosen many years ago, mainly because they're neighbors, or in the case of, say McMinnville, which is not really a neighbor, but it's an identical size to Glasgow. The rest are pretty much neighbors. Owensboro and Frankfort are just similar in that they're public power municipal systems in the neighborhood. We've done that again this year. We simplify it by measuring something that is easily translatable to each of the peer utilities and to Glasgow, and that's measuring what the pay is for a journeyman lineman. And the term journeyman comes from the old German apprentice system. That means that they have completed a 5-year apprenticeship and are certified both locally and by the state as a journeyman electric lineman. So that survey produced an average pay of $37.65 an hour. Our present pay is $36.89, which was modified last December. And so that is a delta or a difference. We're 2% below what the average for the peer group is. Now we take those that survey of journeyman linemen and modify our merit pay plan, which has six levels of pay, and they are modified by referencing the journeyman lineman amount, and say a level 3 is 10% higher than journeyman, a level 2 is 30%, superintendent's 95. This group, level 5 is 25% less than a journeyman, and level 6 is 40% less. Those are relationships developed by thoughtful consideration of the value of each job, having nothing to do with the people that are in the job. So for the hourly group, the people that are either a line foreman, a journeyman lineman, a journeyman meterman, or a laborer, referencing off of the recommended 2% increase, with the laborers being 40% lower and line foreman being 10% higher, you produce these recommended hourly pay rates. For everyone else that's not hourly, they're in a system we call a merit pay system. Again, there's these 6 pay grades. The median of the pay grade is based on that percentage above or below the journeyman lineman. And then the minimum over here, which you can't really see because on my screen it interferes with you guys, is 20% less than the median, and the maximum is 20% more. In fact, most of the minimums have not been changed for years. So the minimums haven't been moving, but the maximums have, 20% over the median. So every year, each employee is evaluated, and we use a pay matrix that turns their evaluation, which produces a numeric score, into a decision matrix based on the numeric score and the percentage that their present pay is of median to determine whatever they merit. If somebody new that we hired at the minimum or less, that merit pay plan may produce a recommendation for a 10% increase for them. For somebody that's near the top, it may produce 1% But that's the way the system works. And it is purely a mathematical, non-emotional system. The better people perform for our customers, the more they're compensated. And if they're not performing well, the less they're compensated. So you roll all of those recommendations into a slide that talks about the budgetary slide. So last year, a $2.542 million base pay rate was approved, and an increase was approved of $97,000, consisting of merit increases, apprentice increases, hourly increases, for a total of 97. So the approved payroll was $2.64 million, and that's pretty much exactly, missing only by a couple of, maybe $1,000, is what our present 2020 base payroll is. So the annual base wage rate today is $2.68 million. I'm requesting an 88,000 increase, which is $10,000 lower than last year, to produce a 2021 payroll of $2.769 million. And this information at the bottom is important. The 3.3% is the total over the present rate. Remember, hourly you're getting 2%. So some of the merit and apprentice increases bump the overall up 1.3%. But historically, over the last 5 years, these increases are averaging, our total base payroll is increasing only 1.25% per year, at least over the last 5 years. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, but the recommended outcome here, and remember, this has nothing to do with me. I'm not in this. This is just what the team that has served the community even came up with ways to make things work through the pandemic. This is what I need to continue this 37-year successful merit pay system for another year. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Do all the utilities in the system evaluate their costs this way, or are there companies that evaluate pay and potential pay increases?
Mr. Chairman, I don't claim to know what they all do. I can tell you some anecdotal data that, for example, the trade association called TVPPA, Tennessee Valley Public Power Association, still sends out an annual survey to us, so I must assume they send it out to everyone. But they are still trying to survey each position. And over 20 years ago, we realized that, for a utility that still only sells electricity, an accountant at that system versus an accountant in Glasgow who has to be versed in electricity, cable TV, internet, each one of them uses a different accounting style, is not really comparable. So that's why we landed on the decision to just survey what we knew was comparable, journeyman lineman. So I'm sorry that's such a long answer, but I don't know what everyone else does. I know this is what we've been doing for nearly 40 years, and it has served us quite well.
Can you go back to that previous slide where it showed us in comparison with other LPCs?
This one?
Yes. So have we lost anybody to any of these other LPCs that are paying more than us? Do we seem to be that is it getting competitive?
Tag, I don't know of us losing anybody to one of those. We've lost a couple of people to contractors who pay more, but they have to travel far and wide, and not everybody is into that. But I can't say that we've lost anybody to BGNU or Hopkinsville or any of these other figures.
Well, I'll tell you, I worked with these linemen, and Billy, you remember I worked down there back when I was 18, 19 years old, and I was a groundman. And let me tell you, that's hard work. You've got to watch every move that you make. Any wrong move, you're dead. And it's I can't believe, I mean, it looks like it's a good rate of pay. I get it. But those guys are highly trained. They continue to be highly trained year after year. And, you know, they've got cojones of steel to be able to do what they do every day. It's not easy work. And I'm sure Billy will probably tell you the same thing. So I feel like we, at a bare minimum, need to keep them where, you know, competitive in the marketplace, and give us a little bit of room to sweeten the deal, I guess, if we ever need to use that as leverage to make sure we keep our talent. Because the last thing we want to do is start losing talent, especially when you get such high trained positions as the lineman. And certainly not to diminish the, you know, the importance of the office staff or any of the other employees. But let me tell you, the linemen, if we don't have them, they keep everything running. We're always glad we have them whenever there's a storm or an outage or something else. So there's my 2 cents worth.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the floor of any kind?
Yeah, I move we accept the proposed pay increase and as presented by the superintendent.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda.
Well, the next item on the agenda is only here. I mean, I do wear glasses, but they're not rose colored. I realize what your all's, at least 3 of you's evaluation is of me, but there's a longstanding expectation that all employees have an annual review. So I just put this there out of habit. I don't really, it won't surprise me a bit if the outcome that the way I'm pretty sure you feel about me is not reflected here, but there it is. I'll be glad to go to the next item if you don't want to consider this.
Go ahead. My view is that we under the existing circumstance, we should just postpone this for a while.
Fully expected that.
Well, you had the same existing circumstances last year and you approved it.
That's right. I say we do it. I mean, let's just get it out on the table. Y'all know something that I don't know. I think we need to talk about it, especially if we're going through this thing, you know, in mediation. So
put a motion on the table in order to discuss it.
Yeah, so I move that we consider the superintendent performance review, agenda item 6A.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think we at least owe it to a 30 some odd year, you know, seasoned and veteran employee of this organization. We've got a problem. We need to tell him what the problem is. I think, you know, and Libby, no, I'm not trying to diminish you in any way, but because you believe the same way I do, but I think if you're going to disparage and impugn a man's reputation and professional performance, you need to do it to his face. And we have the opportunity to do that today. So instead of hiding behind a lawyer or some kind of legal document. So let's at least have this discussion and hash this thing out, see what we feel about him. We can send Billy off into the next room, go quiet and have this discussion like we always have, and come back and tell him the results of that once we're finished, just like we did last year.
What's the motion?
We've got a motion and a second. You had called for discussion. We were just discussing. So if you want to call for the
The
question,
motion is to, what was the motion?
to consider the superintendent performance review, that we need to discuss and review his performance.
Are we gonna discuss this with Billy in the room, or did you say Billy was gonna step out,
And
or?
normally we send him out, send him out and a matter of fact, I think Josh will probably cut the public feed, since this is in a really, I guess maybe potentially we need to go into executive session since we're discussing employment matters.
Ronnie, what do we do?
Well, you can't, I mean, you can move to go into executive session, and state the reasons why you're going, and then come back out. But you can't just cut the feed without doing that.
Yeah, right.
Is that the motion?
Yeah, so I'll move, we go into executive session to consider and perform a performance review of the superintendent.
And Tag, we need to cite the specific section. And I'll have to get that. I don't know if I have the open
Hang on, I'll look to.
meeting section in front of me here.
I believe it's 61.815, Ronnie.
Well, 810 is exceptions to open meetings. Well, that's yet 815 is the requirement, but then you have to cite the provision of 810 that you want to go into closed session about.
Okay, 810.
Only problem I see essentially have, Tag, is that, when it's talking about discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal, I don't think that's what this meeting is about. It specifically says this exception is not interpreted to permit discussion of general personnel matters. I think this may fall into that category, general personnel matters about an evaluation.
Okay, so it's not to be interpreted. So listen, there was really not an exception to go into executive session. We'll just have to ask Billy to leave, and then we can have our deliberation or discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session as per.
No, I think he's not making that motion, right, Tag?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull that because there's not an exception under 61.810 for us to be able to discuss this. So I'm just going to make a motion to conduct a superintendent performance review in open session. We'll just have to ask Billy to leave during those discussions, I guess, if we want to have them in private amongst the lot of us.
Okay, so what's your motion?
I move that we perform a superintendent performance review.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Your vote?
Aye.
All right.
We have, what, 1, 2, 3? Motion 4. Motion carries. We'll have that.
Mr. Chairman, he's left the room.
Tag, it's your motion. You lead the talk.
Well, I guess what we need to do is look at the same criteria we looked at last year. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe we need to look at overall performance, as far as the operations of the utility. We need to look at specific performance when it comes to, any items that have come up that are out of the ordinary course of business, and look at how that's been handled. And then we need to look at financial performance to ensure that we've been meeting all of the requirements for operating a public utility. The ratepayers have gotten what they paid for, and it's been competitive within the marketplace. Now, of course, we have to remember we set the rates, but it's up to the superintendent to carry out the orders of the board. So we'll need to look and make sure that that's been done. And then we need to compare that, I guess, to what his current rate of pay is, and determine if we need to make adjustments to keep that competitive in the marketplace, or whether or not we need to increase his pay or keep it the same. So overall performance, I guess that's something we can discuss. My feelings. I believe that he's operated this utility for 30 some odd years, always with the customers and delivering power to the customers in mind, in a fair way that's beneficial to all customers, not based on rate class, etc. I think he's always tried to do that. And I think a testament to that, his performance is what his employees would say about him. And you're not going to find a single employee down there that I've talked to anyway at the EPB that thinks that he's not an effective and effective manager or superintendent of the EPB. So that's my feelings on performance. I'll open. If anybody else would like to talk, I'll quit, and y'all can have your say if you feel like if you want to disagree with me.
Anyone else?
Not to mention all of the hard work that went into this deal with CATL and TVA, and how instrumental Billy was in that. That is vital to this community.
Well, and it's been hard not talking about that for several months. We've known kind of what's been going on behind the scenes, and it's Billy's done a good job keeping that quiet. I know he's bitten his lip several times, like I have, on this thing, knowing what was coming down the pipe if we just kind of held the course. And so you're right, Libby. That's another good. That's something else to point out, that he was at the helm of this, and one of the, not the most important thing, but the second most important thing to most manufacturing entities, right beside labor, or right after labor, is the cost of energy and the availability of energy and the reliability of that power. And so I think him talking to them, that's been just another feather in the cap. So, but listen, last year we had a couple things we thought he had room for improvement. So we'll be happy to talk about some of those things too, if anybody has anything.
Anyone else? Matt?
What's his current salary right now, just roughly?
Amy will have to answer that.
Okay.
Amy, you there?
She's not there, I don't think.
Melanie?
Yeah, that would be.
Sorry.
That would
I thought Amy was in there too. I'm sorry.
She is now.
Oh,
Yeah, that's not something I have. That would be a Melanie question.
okay. All right. Well, Melanie's not there, so.
My view of this, performance reviews in light of the litigations going on is completely out of place. That if this is going to go forward, it should go after any litigation is over. It's just not appropriate to do this.
Well, we had an opportunity to discuss that when the motion was made, and motion passed. 4 people voted, so here we are. So now I guess we need to go ahead and do it. So.
Okay. Back to the meeting. Is that where we are?
What do you say his salary was now?
We can't take a vote in here.
Yeah, no, we're not going to take a vote. We just need to. I guess we'll just go back and tell him we didn't find any fault. And his review was all positive, because that's all I've heard so far. And I said it, so.
That's a little, speaking of disingenuous.
Well, I mean, it's a fact. I mean, I'm begging you to say something, and I can't get anybody to say anything. So there's nothing disingenuous about me begging for negative comments and can't get any, and all we got's positive.
Last year,
I'll state that.
I think last year they said it was between 140 and 150 plus his retirement. So,
I think we gave him the 3% or the 2.5% everybody got last year. I think we extended to him also. And, you know, listen, I mean, everything goes up. If we want to try to keep, you know, everything in line with everybody else, then, you know, I would certainly discuss when we get back into, well, actually, we've never left. We're not in closed session. We can vote anything we want right now.
Right.
We're not in closed session?
No,
we're
you're not in
closed session.
I thought that we were.
No, we are not in closed session.
No, DT, you're in open session. You're having discussion about his performance. If that discussion's over, I guess if somebody's got a motion to make about, you know, his pay, they can, and then I guess that would be the end of it.
I'll make a motion that we postpone this until after the litigation between the board and Billy Ray is finalized.
Are you talking about the pay side or the performance review? Because we've already voted to discuss the performance review, and that was got 4 votes for that. Are you just wanting to postpone any discussion about pay?
I presume that's what you just had was the review.
Okay, great. All right, well, go ahead and call Billy back. Go ahead and call Billy back in then. Let's go ahead and call Billy back in.
Motion is on the table. Do I have a second?
Got a second.
A second for what?
For what?
Postponing any action
Until after all this litigation is over with.
Well, we're not
We've
taking
already
it.
had the vote 4-1 to discuss his performance review.
We had a vote to review it. We've done that. The vote on the table, the question on the table is taking action. And we are voting, or at least I don't think we should take action, and therefore I've moved that the action on this be postponed until after the litigation.
Oh.
I mean,
So he just got a very positive performance review, obviously, since nobody had anything negative to say, but okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anyways.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Next.
all right, let's go ahead and bring Billy back in. We'll let him know he got a glowing review.
And no raise. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
At least one thing this year has gone as expected.
I'm glad we didn't disappoint.
Sense of humor.
Oh, exactly.
Hey,
We have to have it to deal with the asinine.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, I've got kind of a 1-2 punch. I had to set this up this way because I thought maybe before the meeting we would hear from Gray Media, the company that owns WDKO. We haven't. So really there's nothing for you to act on here. It's just informational. The important rate, the known rate changes recommended by, or the known programming at new rates recommended by the programming committee in November and approved by this board in November still stand. The unknown is what Gray Media is going to ask, but we have seen some, sneaky reveals of what they're going to ask for, and we have incorporated those assumptions into the rate change matter that is, I think, 2 agenda items down from this. So this is just informational. I thought I might be able to tell you something that unfortunately waited until 6 o'clock and the numbers still didn't come in. So that's all I have on that item, Mr. Chairman. Are you ready for the next item?
Next item, I guess.
Okay. Okay, we have a rather complex flat roof system on this building. And there are several different iterations or additions to the building that have occurred over the years, and each one of them has its own roof system. Many years ago, we ignored the roof until it started leaking, and then we had to try to find somebody to fix it. It would usually start leaking in November, and we couldn't get anybody to work on it until spring. So we began a proactive roof management system where we employ a roofing expert every year to write us a report on the different roof systems and what kind of maintenance they recommend for the next year. This year, that report resulted in a recommendation that a large section of the original building roof, which you can see here, this area right here, which is most of the original 1967 building, and as you can also see from this aerial view, there's been a lot of repairs to it over the last several years. I think this roofing system is probably 20 years old. And so we asked for bids to replace this section of the flat roof. Any of you that have ever fooled with a building with a flat roof on it knows that such a thing should never have been allowed in the architectural world, but it is what we have. So we opened bids on that replacement of that roof system, and we got only one bid from Gunter Roofing, and we opened these bids on December the 1st. Is that right? December the 1st or 2nd? Okay. And here's what they bid. $53,700 to replace that section of roof, Gunter Construction Roofing. It would be helpful for you guys if you saw comparative bids. We didn't get any, but I can tell you that probably 20 years ago when that roof system was replaced, that's about what we paid for it. So it hasn't gone up much, if any, since then. So I would recommend that you approve this expenditure. We'll contract with them, and as you can see, they think they would finish it by February the 1st. That seems abundantly optimistic, given that it's winter, but it would be great if they did. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have about this.
I've got one real quick. Is this going to be, do we need to send this back out to rebid since we don't have any other options? And do you have any confidence in the fact that there will be anybody else that can rebid, that will bid into this thing? And secondly, is it to the point to where it's leaking and causing problems, and that's why we have to have it done right now?
Your first question, should we rebid it? I believe that is squarely within your all's bailiwick. Number two, it's not leaking at the moment, but as I said, we have a proactive plan, and the roofing expert says that it's going to start anytime. So it would seem to render useless our planning process if we don't listen to them and do what they say.
Okay. And you just said it hadn't changed a whole lot for, over the last 15, 20 years. So
Yeah.
that's something in the construction and materials business.
Yeah, I mean, it's roofing systems are probably half material and half labor. But that number is not surprising. I think that if I had to take a wild guess before they opened the bids, I would have guessed 50,000. So. And Gunter's good. I mean, they do all the shopping centers, all the big projects. So, I have faith in their ability to do it.
Well, considering that I'm somebody that sees bids on a regular basis and I'm used to them, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's that bad especially for that flat roof system. So I'll make a motion that we accept that bid.
I'll second.
I second it.
Oh, go ahead, Glenn. Sorry.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to accept the bid. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next.
Mr. Chairman, the next thing is this cable television rate adjustment. This is what we normally do in June for a July implementation, but due to the pandemic and your all's wish to figure out ways to mitigate the economic impact on the community, we delayed it. In fact, since we're not talking about it until December, we cannot implement it in January. We can't legally implement it in January. We have to give our customers a 30-day notice. So the earliest this could be done is February the 1st. It's totally driven by program licensing costs, as I have up there. That's the only cost increase that is significant enough for us to come to you and ask for us to change our rates. But here's what we're having to ask for. The broadcast fee, which include, as the name implies, includes the channels that we receive off air, is currently, the retail price is $13.35. The proposed increase is $6.10 to $19.45. You can thank WBKO and WNKY for that increase. The essential tier is currently $34. We're saying let's go to $38.90. So that's a $4.90 increase. You can thank everybody from Disney, ESPN, Viacom, all the people that we buy satellite programming from for that. The premier tier, which is the upper, the 500 channels and up, where all the HD channels are, it's currently $12.50. We need to go to $14.25, which is $1.75 more. Now, digital converters that we've been charging $6.50 a month for, we're recommending a reduction to $5 on that because we're getting them less expensive. They're less expensive than they used to be when we set this rate. And the DVR, the box that's sophisticated enough, has a hard drive in it, is much less expensive than when we first started buying it. So we're proposing to go from $16 a month to $10, or a $6 decrease on those. So these are the rates that I'm recommending that you authorize us to implement on February the 1st, 2021.
Any discussion?
Nothing that I would, nothing that I'm able to say, in front of the public.
Yeah, I concur.
I mean, that's just insane.
Have a motion?
Much as I hate to do it, I'll move that we accept the television rate adjustments as presented.
Have a second?
I'll second, but I hope WBKO and WNKY can get their stuff together.
That's a swan song, Libby. It's their swan song. That's what all it is.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none. I presume we have 3 votes. Motion carries. Next.
Okay, just the customary reports are the last thing. We'll look quickly at our November financials. We'll look forward to the January fuel cost adjustment amount. We'll look at the coincident peak demand ledger. We'll look at, well, we'll talk if you all want to talk any, but I sent you the letter on the TBA rate change proposal. So here we go. This is the customary chart that shows load factor. And this burgundy line here, if you look at the whole year, you'll notice that nearly every month it was better than most of the years before. Right now, December is tied for the best load factor ever with, what would that be, 2018. So these, in a normal situation, management of a utility would be strongly encouraged to figure out ways to improve load factor, because an improved load factor means lower cost of power and more efficiency for the whole grid. So it's another good report on that. Fuel cost adjustment for January 1 will go to 1.577 cents. That's an increase of 0.09 cents. It's practically nothing. TVA continues to have robust hydropower resources. The lakes are more full than they normally would be this time of year. Of course, it's been the wettest year in the Tennessee Valley region ever. So that continues to bode well for the fuel cost adjustment. The monthly report on how many people choose which rates is before you. Again, almost no change. Nearly 2,000, 1,942 residential customers have chosen the fixed, what we call the fixed rate, and 3,800 or so are on the variable rate. 67% choose the variable rate. Small commercial, 326 have chosen the fixed rate, 1,325 the variable rate, 80% choose the variable rate. No real changes on the rest of this stuff. Now that we're 1 month from having full coincident peak demand ledger, we're showing that the misses, these red months are all months where we narrowly missed predicting the right peak hour. The green ones are when we hit it on the nose, and so far we've only got 3 of those for 2020. So we've collected $40,000 less in demand charges than what we paid TVA. In the great big scheme of a $40 million a year operation, that's a pretty small miss, and it does not, it would not be a part of any recommended rate change. That's a kind of a jumbled way of saying we think what we're charging is still okay on peak demand. And finally, just to repeat, I hope you all got the letter from Mike Hines, which was responsive to your requested retail rate changes. I'm sure I don't need to read it to you, so I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, can you summarize that letter? Because we got that here a few weeks ago, and I don't really remember what was in it.
It was only a few days ago, Tags, when it should be.
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I've missed one, Billy.
In November, there was no report because they had not responded. And then I think probably right in the same flurry of emails that was taking place on Friday, came the email from Mike Hines that I turned right around, or asked Amy to turn around and send out to the board. You asked for a summary? They said no. That's the summary.
I read the letter. They basically came back and said that outline wasn't acceptable. I am making a motion responsive to this agenda item. A motion is made to direct the superintendent to design power rates for the GEPB in accordance with the following considerations. Flat base rate of $10 for residential customers, flat base rate of $20 for all commercial customers, excluding industrial. Kilowatt costs are to be volumetric and flat with no peak and no time of use based charges and no demand charges for residential customers. Equal residential and commercial per kilowatt hour costs.
Mr. Chairman, will you be sending that to us in an email in case? Amy-
It has been sent to the board by email. It's in the board email.
Somehow I'm not getting that. Normally, if you
I
send-
didn't either.
Either.
I've not received that detail.
everything you've mentioned tonight about motions that you sent out, we've never seen any of that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I apologize for it not coming. I did put it in the email. Hold on one second and I will send it out again. Email to, maybe I sent it to the wrong GEPB.
God help if there's another one. Whew. Whew.
The listserv is EPB board at Glasgow, not GEP.
Okay, it went to the general EPB, not to the GEP board. How is the EPB board different? GEP board?
No, it's just EPB board at Glasgow-ky.com.
While y'all figure that email out, I'll be right back.
Huh. Some reason, hold on, it'll take me a second to find this for some
So
reason.
it doesn't have to be at the minute. I just want to be clear that that sounded like what you already suggested to TVA and they said no on. So you're asking me to do it again or to put more mathematics into it to submit to TVA when they've already said no. Am I understanding you correctly?
The outline we gave them, they indicated they would help design rates. They did not, they just rejected them in total.
DT, let's wait for Libby to get back since she's out of the pocket right now for the teleconference.
Okay.
Hey, Glenn or Marlon, did y'all get that email? I want to make sure I'm not got something blocked.
No, if nobody got it, I sent it the wrong way.
Oh, okay.
I did not get it either, so.
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't have somebody on the blacklist or something.
My last email was from Josh for the meeting tonight.
I'm looking. I don't think I received it, but I'm looking right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
On its way. Again.
It's here, DT, I have it.
Okay, sorry. It is, the rejection was general. It didn't delineate any specifics. It just said your outline doesn't fit. This is the direction for the chairman to design a rate structure based on that we can propose to TVAS.
That's a motion by the chairman.
Yes.
Good, because I don't take directives from the chairman.
What?
I said, I don't take directives from the chairman. I'll be glad to respond to what the board votes to do.
Now, this looks a lot like the original one. You
So
know,
DT, hey, Tag, just say, have you made a motion, DT? Is that what you did?
I did read that motion. I made that motion. It's there now for you to read.
Okay. I was just saying if there was a second so y'all could really, if there's no
oh,
second.
okay.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second on the motion?
Just repeat the question, please. So
Repeat the motion.
Yeah, the motion.
All right, just a second. A motion is made to direct the superintendent to design power rates for the GEPB in accordance with the following criteria. Flat-based rate, $10 for residential customers. Flat-based rate, $20 for all commercial customers excluding industrial. Kilowatt costs are to be volumetric, flat, with no peak and no time of use based charges and no demand charges for residential customers. Equal residential and commercial per kilowatt hour costs.
You have one motion on that, sir?
I made the motion.
I've got a second on it.
Got a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this thing has about as much chance of passing, just like I said last time we did this. It doesn't meet several of the requirements for a proper rate design. It's got about as much chance of passing as the first one did. We can, you know.
I would expect the chairman would know the proper rate structure and design.
The superintendent, you mean?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, so, but if it's within these constraints, you know, listen, we'll let Billy make the decision, but I've seen this thing for several years, and I think within the constraints that you've outlined, there's not any way you're going to get there to anything that's going to be acceptable to TVA. But we can let Billy do his magic and see if maybe he can figure something out. But I just don't think it's got a snowball's chance of being able to pass the muster with TVA.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
No?
No.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda.
I've just got my customary, do you want to keep doing it like this deal? I don't really think you've got any choice, but I feel like I just need to put it on there every month.
Yeah, I agree with Billy. There's not much, there's not really a whole lot of choice now. You know, even I think they're restricted to groups even smaller at this point than the last time we were with each other. So
I agree. I just know most people hate it, and I didn't want to be guilty of withholding it from the agenda.
yeah, no, I just don't think there's changes. I agree with what you're saying. It's that meeting part's gotten worse than better, and it may take several months for this medication to see if it's going to do anything before we get any relaxation on that.
Okay.
It's probably, we're not going to have what you'd call herd immunity till sometime in late spring, if at all. And at that point, you can probably have meetings, but other than that, it's going to be very difficult.
Other than that, that's all I have for you all tonight.
All right. Hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion. All in favor? Aye. And shut your screen off.
Ah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas to you.
See you next year.